Since 1976, the United States has executed over 1,500 people. 1,500 final breaths. 1,500 last meals. 1,500 sets of last words. But here's the disturbing question that keeps me awake at night. What goes through a person's mind when they know the exact date and time they're going to die? When they've had 23 years to think about the moment their heart stops beating? On May 20th, 2025, at exactly 12:46 a.m., Benjamin Ritchie found out. And what he chose for his last meal, what he said with his dying breath, reveals something shocking about who he really was. But before we get there, you need to understand what he did that night in September 2000. Because what you're about to hear, it's darker than you think. Benjamin Ritchie. Remember that name. Born May 30th, 1980. Executed May 20th, 2025. Just 44 years old when they strapped him to that gurney and pumped lethal chemicals into his veins. But here's what makes this case different. What makes it haunt investigators and prosecutors even now, years later. Benjamin didn't just kill someone. He murdered a police officer, a father, a husband, a man who'd been on the force for just 2 years. And then he did something so twisted, so unthinkable, that it sealed his fate forever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, you need to see how it all started. Because the night of September 29th, 2000, that's when everything changed. This isn't just another death row story. This is about choices, consequences, and whether some crimes are so heinous that death is the only answer. By the end of this video, you'll have to decide for yourself. Did Benjamin Ritchie deserve to die? Or should he have spent the rest of his life in prison? Let's go back to where it all began. Before we continue, I need to say something important. Officer William Toney died a hero protecting his community. His daughters grew up without their father. His wife became a widow at 31. If you believe their story deserves to be heard. If you think victims like Officer Toney shouldn't be forgotten, then subscribe to this channel. Because I refuse to let these stories disappear into silence. Every subscription tells me you care. That you stand with victims. That you demand accountability. Look, I get it. Subscribing feels like a small thing. But to the families watching, means everything. It means their loved one's sacrifice mattered. So, if you have even an ounce of empathy in your heart, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it for Officer Toney. Do it for his daughters. Do it because justice matters. And honestly, if you can watch this story and not subscribe, I genuinely worry about you. Because the only people who don't care about victims are the people who might create them. Subscribe. Now, let's honor Officer Toney together. Before we dive into Benjamin's story, we need to address the elephant in the room, the death penalty itself. Because America is divided on this issue. Viciously divided. As of 2024, 23 states have abolished capital punishment. 27 states still carry it out. And public opinion? It's all over the map. Some people believe that certain crimes are so horrific, so evil, that the perpetrator forfeits their right to live. That justice demands an eye for an eye. That the families of victims deserve to see their loved one's killer pay the ultimate price. Others argue that the state has no right to take a life. That execution is barbaric, that it's irreversible, and that too many innocent people have been condemned to death. They point to cases of wrongful convictions. DNA evidence freeing death row inmates decades after their sentencing. The racial disparities. The moral weight of government-sanctioned killing. Both sides have compelling arguments. Both sides are passionate. Both sides believe they're fighting for justice. But here's where it gets complicated. What happens when the condemned person shows zero remorse? When they tattoo their victim's badge number on their neck as a trophy? Does that change the equation? That's the ethical dilemma at the heart of Benjamin Ritchie's case. And it's why this execution sparked such intense debate. Because when you hear what he did, when you see how he acted in court, when you understand the choice he made that night in September 2000, you might find yourself questioning everything you thought you believed about capital punishment. So let me take you back to that night. To the stolen van. To the chase. To the moment when a 20-year-old kid made a decision that would cost him his life 23 years later. At Beech Grove, Indiana. A quiet suburb where nothing bad ever happens. Until tonight. A white van speeds through residential streets. Inside, 3 men who just stole it from a gas station. Hearts pounding. Adrenaline surging. They think they've gotten away clean. They're wrong. Officer Matthew Hickey spots the van at a traffic stop. Something feels off. He runs the plates. Stolen vehicle. Armed suspects. The chase is on. 2 more officers join. Robert Mercury and William Bill Toney. Bill is 31 years old, married, father of 2 young daughters. He's been a cop for just 2 years, but he's good at his job. Dedicated. By the book. Tomorrow is his 32nd birthday. His wife is planning a surprise party. His daughters made him cards. He'll never see any of it. The van doesn't make it far. After a short pursuit, the driver loses control. Crash. The vehicle careens into a residential yard, doors flying open. 3 men scatter into the darkness like cockroaches when the lights come on. Officer Hickey is fast. He tackles Michael Greer before he can clear the fence. 1 down, 2 to go. But the second man, 20-year-old Benjamin Ritchie, runs like his life depends on it. Because it does. Officer Bill Toney gives chase. Through backyards. Over fences. Past swing sets where children played just hours ago. The American Dream neighborhood becomes a war zone. Bill is gaining ground. His hand hovers near his service weapon. Standard procedure. He calls out commands. Then Benjamin reaches for something. Time slows down. He turns. A 9mm Glock glints under the streetlight. 5 shots tear through the night. 5 bullets aimed at a man just doing his job. Bill's bulletproof vest saves him from 4 of them. But the fifth finds the gap. Upper chest. Just above the vest. Bill manages to fire back once. His training won't let him quit. But his body betrays him. His legs buckle. His weapon slips from his trembling fingers. He collapses into the grass of someone's backyard. Blood pooling beneath him. Life draining away with each heartbeat. Officer William Bill Toney dies right there. Under the stars. In a stranger's yard. One day before his 32nd birthday. Benjamin stands over Bill's body, gun smoking in his hand. And then he does something bizarre. He's wearing a wig. Nobody knows why. Maybe disguise. Maybe paranoia. But in that moment, with sirens closing in and a dead cop behind him, Benjamin rips off the wig and hurls it into the brush. The gun follows. Then he vanishes into the darkness. But what happens next will shock you. Because over 100 officers launch a manhunt, and Benjamin somehow does the impossible. Over 100 officers flood the area. SWAT teams. Deputies. K-9 units. Helicopters with searchlights cutting through the black sky. Roads blockaded. Neighborhoods locked down. But Benjamin slips through the perimeter like smoke. He makes it to a friend's house. Still free. Still breathing. For now. Hours pass. The search intensifies. Nobody's going home. Not until the cop killer is in handcuffs. Then the phone rings at police headquarters. An anonymous tip. Someone knows where he's hiding. Officers descend on the house at dawn. Weapons drawn. Every nerve on edge. When they breach the door, Benjamin doesn't run. Doesn't fight. He just surrenders. Like he knew it was over. Like he'd already accepted his fate. The house belongs to Michael Moody, the 3rd man from the van. They arrest him too. The manhunt is over. But the real battle is just beginning. Inside the courtroom, the world learns who Benjamin Ritchie really is. Born into chaos. Father unknown. Mother a drug addict who used while pregnant. By age 3 he'd been abandoned twice. By 9th grade he dropped out. At 10 he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and cognitive problems. His lawyers paint a picture of a broken boy who never had a chance. Brain damage. Childhood trauma. A system that failed him. Benjamin claims the shooting was an accident. Says the gun slipped from his hand. That it fired by itself as he ran. Nobody believes him. The prosecution counters. Suffering doesn't excuse murder. Plenty of people grow up in chaos and don't become killers. August 10th. The jury delivers their verdict. Guilty on all counts. Murder. Auto theft. Unlicensed firearm. Resisting arrest. But the courtroom drama is just getting started. Officer Toney's widow, Dee Dee, sits through every agonizing moment. When she finally addresses Benjamin, she's clear about what she wants. Execution. Nothing less will be justice. Benjamin's response? He laughs. He interrupts her repeatedly. Mocks her pain. When she calls him a coward, he looks her dead in the eye and calls her a bitch. In court. In front of everyone. No remorse. No regret. No humanity. And then the prosecutors reveal one detail that seals Benjamin's fate forever. Something so twisted that even the jury gasps. On Benjamin's neck there's a tattoo. The number 37. Not a gang symbol. Not a lucky number. It's Officer Toney's unit number. A permanent trophy. A sick reminder of the life he took. Something to brag about in prison. The courtroom goes silent. August 14th. After 3 hours of deliberation, The jury returns with a unanimous verdict: death. Benjamin Ritchie is transferred to Indiana's death row. Stop. Just stop for a second. Benjamin Ritchie tattooed his victim's badge number on his neck. As a trophy. As a permanent reminder that he murdered a police officer. And if that doesn't make your blood boil, if that doesn't make you want to scream at the injustice of it all, then I don't know what will. Here's what I need you to understand. I don't make these videos for views. I make them so victims like Officer Tony aren't erased from history. So their families know people still care 25 years later. But I can't do this alone. Every person who subscribes is saying, I stand with victims. I remember their names. I refuse to let killers like Benjamin Ritchie be the only ones remembered. So if you're still watching, if this story has affected you even a little bit, subscribe right now. Not for me. For Officer William Tony. For his widow Dee Dee. For his daughters who never got to say goodbye. And if you don't subscribe, if you just scroll past after hearing about a man who wore his victim's badge number as a trophy, then honestly I question what kind of person you are. Because good people don't ignore evil. They stand against it. Something absolutely shocking happens while Benjamin waits to die. Something involving a woman from Sweden that nobody saw coming. Thousands of miles away in Sweden, a woman named Ivana watches a documentary about American death row inmates. Something about Benjamin catches her attention. She writes him a letter. Then another. Then another. Words on paper turn into conversations. Conversations turn into something deeper. Then Ivana does the unthinkable. She flies across the Atlantic Ocean to meet him. A cop killer. A man on death row. A man who showed zero remorse. They sit separated by prison glass, and somehow fall in love. For nearly 4 years, Ivana returns again and again. The Indiana Department of Correction allows it. She becomes his lifeline. His only glimpse of the outside world. And here's something most people don't know. Indiana's death row allows inmates to keep cats as pets. Yes, real cats walking around their cells. It's part of a program to reduce isolation and improve behavior. So Benjamin spends his final years with a cat and letters from Sweden, filing appeal after appeal, delay after delay. But justice is patient. And justice is coming. May 20th, 2025. Nearly 23 years after he entered death row, Benjamin's execution date arrives. In his final weeks, Benjamin files for clemency. Now he's sorry. Now he's changed. Now he claims he's not the same man who pulled that trigger in 2000. Where was this remorse during the trial? Where was this change of heart when he laughed at Dee Dee Tony? Where was this goodness when he tattooed his victim's badge number on his neck? The parole board sees through it. Everyone sees through it, and they denied his clemency. For his final meal, Benjamin makes a choice that's almost mundane. The tour of Italy from Olive Garden. Chicken parmesan. Lasagna. Fettuccine Alfredo. The same meal millions of Americans enjoy with their families every week. But Benjamin eats his alone. In his cell. Counting down his final hours. Knowing that in just a few short hours he'll be dead. And what he says with his dying breath. It reveals everything about who Benjamin Ritchie really was. At midnight, the execution process begins. Benjamin is strapped to the gurney. IVs inserted into his arms. The witnesses gather. Family members, prison officials, journalists. And Dee Dee Tony, watching the man who destroyed her life finally face consequences. The warden steps forward. Do you have any last words? This is it. Benjamin's final moment. His last chance to show any remorse. His last opportunity to apologize to the family he devastated. The room falls silent. Every eye is on him. Every ear straining to hear what he'll say. Benjamin takes a breath. And then he speaks. I love my family, my friends, and all the support I've gotten. I hope they all find peace. That's it. No apology. No acknowledgement of Officer Tony. No recognition of Dee Dee or the daughters who grew up without their father. Just gratitude for his support. Hope for his loved ones to find peace. What about Dee Dee's peace? What about justice for Bill Tony? The chemicals begin to flow. First the sedative, then the paralytic. Finally, the drug that stops his heart. Benjamin's chest rises and falls. What? Twice? Then, nothing. 12:46 a.m. Benjamin Donnie Ritchie is pronounced dead. 23 years, 7 months, and 21 days after he murdered Officer William Bill Tony in cold blood. So, what does Benjamin Ritchie's execution mean for the death penalty debate in America? Everything. And nothing. For those who support capital punishment, this case is exactly why the death penalty exists. A cop killer who showed zero remorse. who tattooed his victim's badge number on his neck as a trophy, who laughed at the widow in court, who, even in his final words, refused to apologize. They argue that Benjamin Ritchie had 23 years more than he gave Officer Tony. 23 years of appeals. 23 years of 3 meals a day. 23 years of visits from a woman who loved him. 23 years Officer Tony's daughters didn't have with their father. For them, Benjamin's execution wasn't revenge. It was justice. But for opponents of the death penalty, this case raises uncomfortable questions too. Yes, Benjamin was guilty. Yes, he showed no remorse. Yes, he committed a heinous crime. But does that mean the state should kill him? Does executing Benjamin bring Officer Tony back? Does it heal Dee Dee's pain? Does it give those 2 daughters their father back? Or does it just add another death to the tragedy? Benjamin had every excuse in the book. Abandoned as a child. Drug exposed in the womb. Bipolar disorder. Brain damage. A system that failed him repeatedly. But millions of people grow up in similar circumstances and don't become killers. They don't gun down police officers. They don't mock grieving widows. They don't tattoo their victim's badge number on their neck. So where do we draw the line? When does a tragic childhood become an excuse for murder? When does mental illness absolve responsibility? When does society have the right to say, "You made your choice. Now face the consequences"? Benjamin Ritchie's execution doesn't answer these questions. If anything, it makes them more complicated. What it does show is that the death penalty debate isn't black and white. It's not about being pro-life or pro-death. It's about justice, morality, and what kind of society we want to be. Officer William Bill Tony was 31 years old when he died. He had his whole life ahead of him. He never got to see his daughters grow up. Never got to celebrate his 32nd birthday. Never got to grow old with his wife. All because Benjamin Ritchie made a choice that night. He chose to steal that van. He chose to run from police. He chose to pull out that gun. He chose to fire 5 times. He chose to show zero remorse. He chose to tattoo 37 foot on his neck. And on May 20th, 2025, society made a choice too. A choice that justice, however delayed, would finally be served. Whether that choice was right, that's for you to decide. So, I want to hear from you. After hearing Benjamin Ritchie's story, after learning about the crime, the tattoo, the courtroom behavior, the final words, do you think he deserved the death penalty? Or should he have spent life in prison? Was his execution justice for Officer Tony and his family? Or was it just state-sanctioned revenge? Should his troubled childhood matter? Should his mental health issues be a factor? Or did his complete lack of remorse seal his fate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and I genuinely want to know where you stand on this. Because this isn't just about one case. This is about how we as a society view justice, punishment, and redemption. If this case affected you the way it affected me, please hit that like button. It helps more people see this story and join the conversation. And if you want to see more deep dives into controversial death penalty cases, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. I've got several more coming up, including cases that will challenge everything you think you know about capital punishment. Also, check out the description below for links to my other videos on death row inmates, their last meals, and their final words. Some of these cases will shock you. Rest in peace, Officer William Bill Tony. Your service and sacrifice will never be forgotten. Your daughters deserved better. Your wife deserved better. You deserved better. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.